Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have Parrish Reed here today conducting a training on ZSI Foster Cush-A-Clamp. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the question feature and we'll go over all of your questions and comments during the wrap-up section at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Parrish.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. We got a great attendance today with over 70 people signed up. So thank you so much for sharing your day with us. And I have to say, you guys are truly a group of dedicated professionals because today is the 420 holiday. So, those of you that are focusing on business today, the real kickoff is at 4:20 p.m. So my name is Parrish Reed. I'm with Ideal Tridon, and we're going to be talking about enhancing system performance with ZSI Cush-A-Clamps. And for those of you who don't know, ZSI Foster was recently acquired by Ideal Tridon, who has about 70% of the market share of worm gear and T-bolts. We also have strap binder, Campbell for industrial hose fittings, and of course the ZSI Foster brand with Cush-A-Clamps and hydraulic and pneumatic quick connects. And today, as we're going through Cush-A-Clamps, remember your strut. We have 3 manufacturing facilities on the East and West Coast to handle your strut applications. I'm going to, Courtney, on my slide, it's showing start broadcast. Are you guys seeing that? Do I need to close that out?
You can just minimize that to the side. We are live, so I think unless anyone is having any issues hearing us, you can send us a direct chat or question, but we should be good to go.
Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Click that. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about why ZSI Cush-A-Clamps. And once you're able to answer that question, that's our goal today. You're going to be able to interact directly with your customer about a lot of great benefits that'll get their system operating efficiently. We're going to talk about some technical properties of the clamps. Just a little thing on the customer's perspective, which I think is really important for setting up how you interact and present the product. We'll talk a lot about applications and, of course, the product. So one thing I just wanted to reiterate is thanking you. You're the most important piece of this puzzle. You directly interface with the customer. You learn what their specific needs are. You're presenting our product, and for that, we thank you. ZSI does have a highly differentiated value proposition with a variety of patents and patent pending and special things about our clamps that make them the best out on the market. So if you have any questions in the slide bar, you can just hit that little arrow, go to the question section, type in your question. At the end of the presentation, we'll be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. So this course is for you. Make sure you get all your questions answered. So the one thing I want to impress upon you is clamps are used everywhere. Wherever you have a piece of tube, a piece of pipe, a hose, a cable, anything that's round, it needs to get supported. You sell a lot of hydraulic hoses. You sell components that get attached to those hoses, like valves, pumps, flow meters, gauges. Those things need to be supported. You'll find our clamps in a wide variety of industries and many more than what's showed here. And this is just showing a handful of our Cush-A-Clamps. We have clamps for every application out there. And if you come across one where you could see a new one being developed, we want to hear from you. We want to work with you. Please feel free to contact me, your regional sales manager, contact our factories direct. That's how we come up with new products like that Alpha up in the top right. There was a boiler application for a marine application. They were putting a clamp very close to a boiler, and so we developed a special elastomer to handle the high temperature for that application. So why ZSI cushion clamps? And it's all about enhancing the system performance. We're going to talk about these 5 items a little bit in depth. So let's get rolling. So the first thing is eliminating galvanic corrosion. When you have 2 metals in direct contact, dissimilar ones, it causes that mess that you see right there on the copper tubing. So the cushion clamp is where all the magic happens. So you see a variety of our different cushions for a variety of different clamps. And the key thing here is the way that it eliminates the galvanic corrosion. And what you're looking at here is a Cush-A-Nator, which is a strut clamp. And that high temperature cushion, which is blue, completely encapsulates the tubing, pipe or hose, and does not allow that line to come into contact with the hardware. So the dissimilar metal contact is not being made. So the other thing about enhancing system performance is when you have equipment, you have CNC equipment, you have machinery, you have moving parts, fans, pumps, rotary motion, bearings are wearing out, conveyor belts are moving. There's causing all kinds of generation of vibration, and that vibration transmits forces to the connections of the equipment. It could be harmful to electronic equipment. So the cushion clamps by ZSI grabs that vibration or shock wave and prevents it and minimizes the forces that go to the various equipment. The other thing that happens is when those forces travel down the line, it puts a lot of stress on the connections. So if you have a big actuated valve that's really expensive and you have some vibration going to it, it could cause leak. It could cause a leak. So the cushions help promote leak-free connections. And what you're seeing here is a variety of parallel lines with the beta clamp attached to the system. It's painted to blend in with the machinery in the background, and there's some double heavy betas side by side. So whenever you have vibration, you pretty much get noise. They kind of come together in a package. So let's just take a look at a normal situation, water hammer. So the top figure shows the valve in the closed position. The fluid or the water is static. It's not moving. When you open the valve, that water starts to rush. It's starting to flow. It's building up momentum. If you have a big line, you're going to get a lot of momentum. If you're transporting it, like on a distribution pipeline, it could be traveling for many miles, and there could be a huge amount of force that gets generated with this momentum. So as soon as you close that valve, especially a fast-acting one like a ball valve, that fluid is going to come to an immediate stop. It's like a train just coming into a solid concrete wall, and it's going to rattle that valve to its core. If you have Teflon packing in there, it cold flows, so when forces are subjected to it, it's not going to go back in the position to fill properly. So the cushion clamps are going to help absorb those shock waves and minimize that vibration. So let's take a look at a small residential water hammer application. And you might be thinking, hey, I sell to big industries and critical applications. Well, it's not just about water, it's about fluid. So it could be a chemical, it could be steam with condensate. You can still generate a water hammer. That's just the general term for it. So what we're going to look at here is a 7-second video. A person is going to be cycling a valve. You're going to see the tubing kind of bang up against the adjacent pipe. If your tubing isn't secured, that'll put the stress on the connections, and it could also be rubbing against any of the framework. Well, I guess that's we've got a little technical difficulty. Let me see. Hey, I think we got the feedback issue solved. What you may not have been able to do, because I was trying to increase the volume and it caused a little feedback loop, is when that video was running, person cycled the valve, the tubing hit against the adjacent pipe, it creates a loud noise. If you're in a industrial situation, you're in a big facility and you start hearing noises that aren't supposed to be like that, it's quite a cause for concern. So the clamps can help control the water hammer, and there's also good practices for how to open and close valves that the plant would be using. So rotary motions, moving parts. So what we're looking at here is a fan, a pump that is using Cush-A-Clamps in the background. It's attached with some Wesanco strut against the concrete wall. There's a variety of Cush-A-Clamps for the different sizes. They might be hard to see all of them, but there's probably about a half a dozen or so just in that little area by the pump. And so when it moves, it creates vibration, it creates noise. That noise, even though it's most intense where the pump is, it can still travel quite a ways down the line and people can hear that. But the cushion is going to absorb that noise and minimize the downstream noise. So hose routing, keeping your system operating efficiently. Another important thing is cushion clamps help route hose, tubing, and pipe. So we're looking at a chassis here of a vehicle, and you want to make sure that your hose doesn't come into contact with something that's hot. In the mobile hydraulics, when you energize it, that hose is going to want to expand and it wants to contract. So it wants to contract, and so I'm getting a call, so sorry about that. So it wants to contract, it puts a lot of stress on the connections, and it could come into something that's hot. It could melt it. It could put a force on an ignition line and create a fire hazard. So the cushion clamps are going to keep the hose, the tube, and the pipe where we want it. So in this case, with Daimler, they had to recall 740 Freightliner trucks because they poorly secured the airline hose, which also had an impact on the adjacent ignition. So here are some examples of improper hose routing. You'll get abrasion, as you see in the upper left. You can exceed the minimum bend radius in the bottom left. And you can also get tube erosion by having a sharp bend where the fluid under high velocity erodes the inner diameter of the hose. And so the cushion clamps by ZSI can help minimize all of those things and keeping the system functioning properly. So here's an example of good hose routing using the twin beta welded to a flat surface, keeps the hoses aligned. When they get energized, they're not coming into contact with sharp edges, and you have very gentle bends to keep the hoses non-stressed so they don't have to go see their therapist. So another thing is safely supporting the system. You might think, hey, I got a 10-inch pipe, I got this heavy valve, I got this equipment, it's hundreds and thousands of pounds. You're thinking about like the worst case scenario. And of course we want to support that, and our clamps will do it for those large systems. But also for small lines, you might not think they could be under a couple of thousand, 3,000 PSI. They could be compressed gas. If somebody leaned on a 1/4-inch stainless line, even though it's stainless, you can easily bend it and cause a leak or the gas to come out. So we have a regulator switchover box right here. And a great practice here is you have a beta clamp on each side of the gauge, and that's also great to do with any of your valves or filters. So you're keeping them secured properly. And if there were no clamps and you're dropping a variety of valves off of an elbow, that could cause the lines to bend. So here, even in a small line situation, we're seeing safety and properly supporting the system. So one thing that I think is really important, and we're just giving a little bit of time to, is, what is the customer thinking? So you want to develop your own open-ended questions just to engage the customer, find out what they're thinking, what's important to them, and instead of unloading a whole lot of information, you can pick the specific aspects of whatever product you're selling, and we appreciate when you do with the Ideal Try-It-On group. You can pick out the things that are most relevant. So you could say, how do your customers view your products? How do they view your company? Well, if you get that rare individual who says, hey, we have a cheap, faulty, unreliable product, well, you can talk about how to improve that situation, but you're probably going to hear an answer like, we're about quality, high performance. We provide a lot of value, and we're reliable. Well, now you got some talking points about the clamps. What is it like to assemble your equipment? So you're getting that feedback. So those were like big questions. Then you can ask them about that particular individual. Maybe they're the design engineer or the plant manager. What's important to them? What makes them proud of the work that they do? These kind of seem like very general questions, but you're finding the stuff that they may normally not tell you about, and you learn things about how your product solves better problems, solves it for them. So you can get some things. Some of the answers could be like, hey, I'm trying to do a design enhancement. I'm looking at cost savings. I need more lifting capacity. I'm concerned about the safety of the people in the plant, and I want it to be easy for people to maintain our product out in the field. So the original Cush-A-Clamp is designed by ZSI. It's the industry standard out there. It's tried and true. And one of the things that makes it unique is having this living hinge. So I'm going to kind of point at this area right here. There's a little crease. Based off of the material properties, you could open and close that clamp dozens and dozens of times. It's going to stay together. It's going to be secure. So that makes it easier for the installer to open the clamp and install it. So that's a unique differentiator. Some people, since they don't have the living hinge, they might thin out the cushion. So that means now they can open it easier, but they don't have enough cushion to knock out the vibration, dampen the noise, and last longer in a vibration application. The other thing we do is a controlled squeeze. And so in this area right here where you're tightening the nut, you do to your torque assembly instructions, you can't over tighten it because there's a metal sleeve in there that doesn't allow you to damage the cushion. And if you're dealing with soft tubing like copper, you're not going to crush the tubing. So it's those are two nice advantages with the Cush-A-Clamp. Here's a heavy-duty industrial vehicle utilizing the Cush-A-Clamp. There's about 8 lines on the side of this vehicle running all up and down the entire side. And it's keeping the lines routed properly, supported properly. And the Cush-A-Clamp goes up to 6-inch pipe and the thermoplastic elastomer up to 275 degrees. And the hardware, which is the metal components that support the cushion, can be gold, e.g. finished steel, and stainless. Now, here's one of our applications, the cruise vessel, National Geographic. They're using quite a bit of our Cush-A-Clamp, our alpha clamps, and also the beta. And in the marine industry, they like using stainless and 3/16 stainless. Sometimes they'll use a little bit of steel, but that's in an isolated area where it minimizes the salt air. But fishing vessels, tugboats, Navy, our product is extensively used there. And also in vehicle production, like you see with this refuse truck, there'll be a lot of betas on the exterior, but underneath that container will be a variety of tubes supported with Cush-A-Clamps. So U2, they sang a song about the Cush-A-Nator, even better than the real thing. So let's take a look at what makes the Cush-A-Nator so great. So I turned the sound off. There was a catchy little rock tune with it, but there's the Cush-A-Nator. It's a strut clamp, just like the Cush-A-Clamp. They both have a living hinge. So the old way with the Cush-A-Clamp or any of our competitors, because the Cush-A-Nator is patented and nobody has it but us, you have to remove all of the clamps in the line, disconnect each end of the tube or pipe in order to replace one clamp. So it takes a lot more time. Now when you look at the Cush-A-Nator, you open it with the living hinge. That little tab right there locks into the strut, keeps it aligned properly. And now you do your torque. You have the controlled squeeze with the elastomer being a barrier between each side of the clamp. So it's way faster as far as install and also replacement. So that's our old temperature rating because we added the new high intensity, which brings it up to 400 degrees. So you see our three different cushions. And what's great about our cushions, we have our own injection molding. So we make these in-house. And this line is patented up to 400 degrees. It lasts 50% longer in high vibration due to the design. And on the high temp and the high intensity, it has a UV protection. And it also has better flexibility. So sometimes people are all concerned about cost, but if I'm installing a few hundred of these every day and it's harder to work with the material, or I forgot to put a clamp in, now I have to disassemble what I did in an OEM setting. Well, the production manager is not going to be happy because production goes down. Sometimes it's better to get the most overall best value. And what's great about the Cush-A-Nator, it has the same pricing structure as the Cush-A-Clamp. So you win in both cases. So if it's about beer or no beer, I'm going to be voting for beer. I hope you are too. But the Cush-A-Nator, Cush-A-Clamp, and Beta are extensively used in the food and beverage industry. They like using 316 stainless or stainless due to FDA. And you know, I'll just kind of say a lot of times these facilities will have a lot of lines in the ceiling. So if I'm installing a Cush-A-Clamp line in the strut, in the ceiling, which there'll be like miles of it, and I have my lift, so it brings me up to the ceiling. Now I install one end of the tube, I install the other end with the Cush-A-Clamp, but at the same time, I have to put the Cush-A-Clamp cushions on the tubing before I secure the other end, and I slide them all the way down the line. So what happens if I run into a piece of equipment that I can't slide the equipment? Cush-A-Nator, you secure each end and you just pop them in wherever you want to. So it's much faster, takes less labor to install. You'll find a lot of Cush-A-Nators and Cush-A-Clamps and Betas on skids to support the equipment, and Wesanco strut to be the foundation. So that's just a little reminder. Remember your strut. We're being used out at the new Raider Stadium. We were used to build the Levi Stadium. And you see Mandalay Bay in the background, but at the MGM properties, over a couple of 100,000 feet of strut were used. So when you're selling a lot of clamps, there can be six-figure projects for the strut. So we have a great network and regional warehouses of strut all throughout North America. So this is the granddaddy of them all. You probably recognize for a lot of the hydraulic applications, the Beta clamp. We're going to go through the family a little bit here, get to meet them. Remember, it's all about enhanced system performance. We learned these topics. They apply to all of our cushion clamps. So the standard Beta, 1500 PSI, steel or stainless hardware, poly cushion. You can also stack it. And you'll notice that the cushion is black. So some people like to have the black because it blends in a little bit better with their equipment. We have a ton of these on the shelf in variety of sizes. They're also standard, but we don't publish them in the catalog. So just know that we have the 2 color options for our Beta family. And it's Polypro 2 with the same temperature. So the stacking makes it more efficient in a tighter space. So here's the standard Beta, welded, keeping those hoses safely routed. Here's a lab application using the standard Beta. It's a flow test bench with some big regulators that make a lot of noise when you max them out on their flow. A lot of vibration that could result when you get a lot of pressure drop at the end of the pressure flow curve. And so the twin is offered in our standard line. It enables you to put more lines in a smaller space, so it can reduce it by as much as 95% as opposed to putting 2 single Betas together. It makes a faster install, and it's more cost effective than 2 individual clamps on the standard single. So here's an application on another vehicle. They have 10 lines being run there. So let's zoom in a little bit. So the top 2 lines are utilizing a twin Beta, and the bottom 4 lines are twin stacked. So it's making good use of space. And the clamps get used a lot in control panels, instrument settings, valve manifold boxes, enclosures. What's really nice here is the designer is really good. They used the weld style and also the strut. So the strut right here is a little bit elevated due to the height of the strut, which allows these lines to run over the ones running this way. So you're maximizing your layout in a smaller panel. So that makes it really nice. And the user or the designer was also great at staggering these, which allow you to put the lines a little bit closer together. They probably could have even done a little bit closer by using a twin and a single, but you know, that's just a preference and other design considerations. So the heavy series is our Big Bubba clamp. So everything is beefier about it. The cover plate, the bolts, the cushions, the weld plate, the rail nuts, all of those can withstand higher pressures. So like over 1500 PSI, it's great for dynamic loads, extreme vibration, and greater support strength. And again, you can get the cushions in black. For high temperature applications, go with aluminum, like near a furnace or a steel mill. And you kind of see these funny little robot feet over here. That's the heavy duty rail connection, which is similar to strut, but slightly different. So this is the heavy, and this over here is our standard. And you have a variety of mounting options throughout the Beta family. The top left is showing the standard rail nuts, the strut nuts on the right, and the familiar weld plate on the bottom. So you can use all those methods of attachment. The strut is on the left. You see a little bit of the curve near the strut nut, while the C-rail is completely flat and way more compact. So the thing that gives the Beta its holding power is the ribs, and these are manufactured out at ZSI with our injection molding, so they're made in USA. So that holding power gets translated to slip force. And what we're doing is we're taking a close-up look at one of these Betas, and if you were to guess, and you're right, it's heavy, because we're having dynamic loads. It's a humongous cylinder. There's external forces, lots of vibration hitting, you know, probably different parts of the earth when you go to lift things and pound things. So the question is, how much force is required to move that tubing. You don't need to know this. Just know that the information's in our catalog. Contact any of your regional sales managers or the factory. We'll help you out with that. So if I was to take a big sledgehammer and slam that, if I had a group S1, it takes 247 pounds in the standard line. If I take our biggest grouping for the largest size ranges, it takes over 500 pounds. And notice that to assemble the standard beta takes 6 foot-pounds of torque for all clamps. The heavy beta has a little bit different torque depending on the size, but you can see on our H11 series, our largest clamps, it's going to take over 27 or almost 27,000 pounds. So if we were to compare the holding power, the standard for a 1-inch tube line is 315 and over twice that amount for the heavy. So let's take a look at how to assemble a clamp. So the weld plate gets placed on the metal surface, you weld it, then you add the cushion. Pipe or tube goes into place, or the hose, put the top cushion in place, put the cover plate, and then tighten the nuts, the hex nuts to the specified torque. So you don't want to put the cushion on the weld plate and weld it because you don't want the arc to damage the cushion or the heat transfer to affect the material properties. Okay. When you're choosing standard or heavy, your largest lines, you want to graduate to heavy because everything is heavier. The fluid contained within the pipe, the components, the weight of the piping, go with the heavy. If you have a high velocity fluid, look at the heavy. You have intermittent loads or dynamic forces, that's another good reason to go with the heavy. And a general guideline is for systems over 1500 PSI. So here are some standard betas absorbing the vibration from a fan. Our heavy betas are used to secure a variety of hoses on some earth mining equipment, as you see in this picture. And if we're looking at sizing, you see the picture on the right, and there's a little bit of a gap, and that's the true size of the opening that's going to secure the tube. So if you had a 1-inch tube, you need a 1-inch opening, and that opening is when you have that small little gap there. It's about a 1/16 of an inch. And so when you're selecting your size, first you want to identify, do I have tube? Okay, go to the tube column, and you'll see if I have a 1/4-inch tube, the OD is 0.25. If it's 3/8, it's 0.375. And this right here means all of these clamps are in this S1 group. If I have pipe, I go to the pipe size. And I have 1/8-inch pipe. It tells me the diameter is 0.405. A 1/4-inch pipe has 0.54 OD. So you can see these two dimensions are far different. So you need to ask, is it tube or pipe? And if you were selecting something that's an oddball size, like some non-standard tubing, or you had a hose and it has a variety of different wraps, what you want to do is find out the OD of the hose and look at the value in the parentheses and pick the value that's most closely related to it. And so that gap, if you're about 0.03 under or over, is a good way to know how to size. So a tubing goes off of OD. So whatever the tube size is, that's what the OD size is. Pipe is based off of the ID. It's a nominal pipe size, and they calculate this based off of a little bit newer setup, but it's geared to pipe sizes up to 12-inch. So a 1/2-inch pipe has a 0.84 OD. You can pull up your pipe charts. And remember, is it tubing or pipe? And a 1-inch tube would have a 1-inch OD that gives you the clamp, the S3016, while the 1-inch pipe is an S5021. So if you don't determine what they're using, you could have the wrong clamp selected. So here's just an example, 1/2-inch pipe, and now I'm adding the hose. So if you're looking at the beta, you want to know the OD of the hose. R1 has specifications, so it's a 0.53. So if I was looking at this with that 0.03 over or under, I could actually use for the R1 hose, I could use the S2008 because 300ths above that is 0.53. Okay, I could use the S2008, but I like this one even better because it's 100ths lower, so it's much closer, and it's under the number, which means it's going to be easier to get the cushions in complete contact. All right. You can order the clamps in full assembly. You can get them bulk packaged, so you have 1,000 bolts in a bag with 1,000 cushion sets and all the other components. That's great for an OEM. But maybe your retail, you want them bagged. So each clamp is individually bagged. We do that too. So that just makes it easy. They just say, hey, I want 10. Well, there's 10 bags, and they go. But an OEM isn't going to want to open like 1,000 or 2,000 bags. They want it bulk. So we do it both ways. So there's the individual components. And we have these different assembly types. The Z is for strut, the weld plate. So you can get, whatever is shown in the picture is everything you get except for the Z, which is showing the strut, just so you know it's a strut clamp. So all you do is you add that last designator onto the end of the part. So an S1004, if you want a weld plate, put an S on it. If you want the stacking kit, put a B on it, and you'll want both of these, and you can do a complete stacking kit. So there's a safety plate and the stacking bolts. If you want strut, put a Z on it. You want to attach it to a rail, put an R on it. If you want a cushion, they're sold as sets, so just order one, and you'll get both pieces shown here. And you could buy any of the individual components all by themselves. So whatever is easiest for you and your customer, we'll do it. The beta smoothie is like a day at the spa for the hoses. So you'll notice that the core is really smooth and the edges are chamfered. And so that makes it even less abrasion on the hose cover. And they're size geared off of 1/4 to 1-inch R1 hose. So the OD of the opening is 0.53 to 1.42. So if you are using a tube or pipe or some other object besides hose, you need to know what that OD dimension is and match it to your item that's being secured. It also comes available in a twin. And these are both the single and the twin are the standard version. So all of the same temperature and pressure rules apply. The material is polypropylene, same mounting styles, but this one only comes in black. And for extreme vibration, we offer the beta rubber insert in both standard and heavy. And what's great about this one is there's more sizes. So the metric runs from 6 millimeter to 89 millimeter. You have oddball tubing, go with the rubber insert. You can stack it. You got the mounting options. So this is taking a look at the clamp, and that little round circle right there in the middle, this is what grips your tube, hose, or pipe. And when you change to different sizes, the only thing that changes when you stay within a group is just this piece right here. And it has a smooth bore. So we're taking a look at the side view of one of the split bushings. You'll kind of notice it kind of bumps up here, bumps up down here, and all around. That's what locks it into the cushion. And so all three of these cushions would use the same hardware, and there's like up to 10 sizes in a particular group. So the only thing that's changing in that group is just what size bushing you want. So it makes it easy for inventory. So there's an application holding the hose. I'm kind of moving a little bit here. So we're going to just kind of touch on two different clamps, and then we'll be ready for questions. So if you have any questions that you wrote down, think of those, type them into the place, and we'll be happy to answer those best we can. The Alpha Series U-bolt, it has a living hinge, as you see right here. So that makes it easy to open the clamp. All of the blue and all of the orange cushions, so the high temperature and the high intensity, also have UV protection. So that's great when you have something out in Arizona and it's getting to a lot of sun. It mounts to any flat surface. It can hold some really large lines, like up to 6-inch, steel and 3/16 stainless, and it eliminates knife edge loading. So because we have a patent on this, we can encapsulate the entire tube or pipe and keep all 360 degrees of the pipe protected. Some people only have a little saddle on the bottom, so it protects about 30 degrees of the tube, but the majority of the tube or pipe comes into contact with the U-bolt. So when you have hot fluids and it's expanding and contracting, it's creating noise against the top of that metal U-bolt. You got dissimilar metals. You got the problems when you're utilizing those other designs out on the market. So what we have right here is just kind of a variety of different lines that I'm kind of going across right here. It could be on the side of the vehicle, and it's securing it with the U-bolts. This one, I got to see this application in person. This was on a large vessel, and it's utilizing the Alpha to secure these real heavy lines and big flanges and other components on there. And there was no temperature concerns because it wasn't near the boiler, so we did the standard material. But 3/16 stainless was the preferred material because it was a marine application. And here's another vehicle showing a bunch of the Alpha clamps securing this large piping all along this situation. So it's keeping it from rattling, it's securing it. You have a high pressure water line going. It's not kicking back the piping system, putting stress on the connections. It's keeping everything safe. So this will be our last clamp that we talk about before we go to questions. So just a little reminder, if you don't have any questions, that's great too. Our Omega series cushion clamp. So it utilizes that metal U-shaped bracket with a cushion. The cushion has a living hinge, makes it easy to open, makes ours unique right here. You can get a lot of cycles out of opening and closing that numerous times. It also has the high temperature and UV protection. Mounts to any flat surface. You get the same benefits as the Cush-A-Clamp. You could get a little bit lower profile because of the way the design is. Steel and stainless. Sizes up to actually 6.3 inches OD opening. And we talked about the higher temp application. So there's the Omega clamp. Let's look at an application or two. So you can see some, here's a pipe being secured off of a frame right here. You can have a filter or a component, and it's great to secure it on each side so that it protects it and secures it properly. And here's just a couple of tubing runs off the side of a piece of equipment, securing those lines and keeping them in place. All right. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention with the Omega and also the Alpha, in some marine applications, they like flame retardant. So if something was to catch on fire, you don't want your boat to completely ignite and sink. We can make the cushions so they're flame retardant and they self-extinguish. So we have some additives that we can put into the cushions, and it's a nice safety advantage that we have. So there we are. I'll hand it back over to Courtney. This is the time for any questions that you may have. I didn't know if do we have any questions? I can fill a little time with something if we don't.
We do. We have some questions, so I'll start reading them off to you. First one, is the rubber bushing split to pop over the pipe or tube?
Yes. So I could have showed a little bit better picture, but that rubber bushing has a split, and you just kind of flex it open, and it wraps around the tube or pipe or hose in that case.
All right, so that does answer another question asking if the rubber inserts are split.
Yeah.
Next question, can I order just the rubber insert for the beta style clamp?
You sure can. With the beta family, all of the components can be ordered individually. So whether they're bolts, split bushings, cushions, weld plates, rail nuts, all of those components can be ordered individually.
Can you do special cushion materials?
Ah, that's a nice question. Because we have the injection molding equipment at our facility, yes, we can. So that would be something, contact your regional sales manager, contact ZSI directly. We would love to work with you on any application. That's how we did the Alpha series with the blue cushion, because there was a temperature concern. If there's a compatibility concern with an environment or a washdown, we'd be happy to work with you on that.
All right, next question. How difficult would it be to customize an Alpha Series U-bolt clamp? We have a customer looking for 18-inch diameter.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that question. Get that person's information so I could see what our maximum, I would have to touch base with the factory and see what we could do. And that would be something that we might need some tooling to go up to that large size to create that cushion. And I'm not sure of the largest size that we can do. I know currently right now we do like over 10-inch or about 10-inch pipe.
All right, next question. Are the beta standard and heavy available in metric sizes?
They sure are. There are some specific metric sizes. So in our catalog, there's actually a column that'll show the metric size. But the other thing is, and this also applies to tube or pipe, some tube sizes match up with the pipe size. So sometimes in the catalog, we might only list the tube size, but it also applies to a pipe. So that's where you need to know like the OD of the item. So it might require an extra calculation because some of our fractional sizes, which would be inch, like inch, half inch, 5/8, whatever, also will match up with certain metric sizes. But if you take a look at the rubber insert, there's probably over a couple of dozen metric sizes that are specific to metric from 6 millimeter to 89 millimeter.
Okay. Sorry, there's a couple new questions coming in. I noticed in your presentation that the pipe claps fit Schedule 40 pipe. Do you have claps available for Schedule 80, 160, etc.?
We sure do. the thing, and I didn't go into like all the detail about nominal pipe sizing. And if you looked real close, my eyes aren't that good, so I probably wouldn't have seen it, but I know I put it there. There's a little white ring that's at the midpoint of the wall thickness of the pipe. So when they have their design standards, the OD of the pipe does not change depending on the schedule. If it does, it's a very rare situation, but for the majority of the applications that you come across, if it's Schedule 40 or Schedule 80, they both have the same OD and they use nominal pipe size. It's not exact, but it's like in the ballpark. So it handles both schedules.
All right, next question. On the rubber insert style, does the insert have a living hinge to make it easy to put it on the hose?
Well, you know what? You just came up with a great idea for a product enhancement. The rubber insert does not have a living hinge. And, you know, that's how we learn things from you guys, from the customers, getting that feedback and how to do it. But at this time, that one does not have a rubber insert. So anyways, thank you for that suggestion.
Who should our customers be focusing on talking to about these products?
So, you know, that there's a lot of different like OEMs, project designers, and, you know, you want to get a hold of your key decision makers. So sometimes, you know, if there's a OEM and they're designing something, you probably want to touch base with a engineer. And you know what? This is a great thing to contact your regional sales manager. We would be happy to put on a joint presentation, a lunch and learn with your customer. I know we have the coronavirus kind of things are a little bit different right now, but when that kicks back open, we would love to go in and train, but, you know, get with those designers, get with people that actually install it, like the technicians and the plumbers, the people in the factory, because when they're using it, a lot of times they'll be, hey, you just showed me a better way of doing something. So now they talk to either their manager or the buyer, because some of these people will have control of what gets purchased. So, you know, I'm kind of giving an open-ended question, but you need to find the key person that's either designing it, using it, and has the ability to purchase it. So.
All right, a few more questions. What is group size?
Group size, I kind of touched on that, but I didn't go into big detail on it. But it's referring specifically to the beta family. So that would be the standard, the heavy, the smoothie, the twin, and the rubber insert. So like if I say this is a group size 1, it does a certain range of sizes. And I think in the group size 1 in a standard, it goes from 1/8" tube through 3/8 pipe, and there's 2 metric sizes slightly larger than 3/8 pipe. All of those clamp part numbers would belong to the same group, which means they all use the same hardware, and only the cushion is different. So you just swap out the cushion to get the different, whether it's 1/8" tube, 1/4" tube, 1/8" pipe. And the only difference would be on the rubber insert. The only thing that's being swapped out there is the rubber insert, and the cushions are all the same for a given group size.
What is the best way to size a clamp?
Okay, I would probably say your sure proof or gold standard is to find the OD of the item that you're trying to secure. That is the most foolproof way, because when you have the OD, you know the size of the opening of the clamp you need, but sometimes a customer can't tell you that. So you might say, do you have a tube? Do you have a pipe? What size is it? Sometimes they might not tell you the right size. They might tell you, hey, I have 1/4, and they really have 3/8. So that's why it's nice to know the OD. And you could, if you're dealing with them on the phone, you could say, hey, use a caliper, that's easy. Or if you're going in to see them directly, you know, having a caliper is a nice piece of equipment to have for, you know, determining sizes of a lot of different components you do. And if you like doing math, which I'm not a big math fan, I kind of forget, but you can use your circumference formula. So they would just measure the line. So they would do like 2 pi r would be the circumference, and you'd solve for r and double it. But that's too much info.
All right, we've got one question to wrap up our follow-up section. You mentioned the 420 holiday at the beginning of your presentation. What does that mean?
Well, I learned this from, well, I won't say who I learned it from. But anyway, all I would say is Google it. It officially kicks off at 420. And if you want to celebrate it, you know, check out a Cheech and Chong movie like Up in Smoke.
And that's it for our questions.
We really appreciate you guys sharing this time with us. And I know it's kind of unusual circumstances. Please know we want to work with you. Feel free to contact us. You need requests for quotes. You need product technical information. We have the ideal companies now. So we have our worm gear, T-bolt clamps, strap binders, Campbell Industrial Fittings, and strut. We want to help you be successful out there. So thank you.